Welcome everyone, Chris Petri. Thanks for coming by. You're at the right place at the right time. We're doing some extreme beginners watercolors. You'll always know that you can look up my name anytime, Chris Petri, and then you look up the word extreme beginners, and you'll see that I've got probably over 150 extreme beginner series videos. This is geared for people that are just starting out in watercolor, so have fun here. Enjoy. We have the Prang Oval 16 set. We'll cover this paint set in detail, as well as our brushes. We have various brushes that we're going to use. We'll cover all of our brushes that you're going to use for this painting. The colors, we're using the glazing technique. We'll explain that in detail for you so you kind of learn the glazing technique, probably the most widely popular technique and method used in watercolor throughout the world for painting watercolors. So enjoy, have fun with this. We'll get started in just a second. We'll get into the pencil sketch and how we're going to get everything onto the paper as far as our pencil sketches first, and then our washes, our paint washes, and we're going to work right from our phone here. So we have our cell phone. You can use a computer screen. You can use a book, magazine clippings. You can work outdoors. Some of you might probably have this scene out out of your backyard. Or somewhere where you live right close by, you can actually paint something like this in plein air. So have fun with it, enjoy, and we'll get started right now. Okay, so we just saw the finished painting, and we're just going to move right along here. We did use our electronic device for our subject matter. Sometimes we might print out a photo of a scene we want to paint, or maybe we'll see something in a watercolor book or a magazine. Sometimes we'll be outdoors painting in plein air, and maybe we'll have a scene that we'll paint from that. And also too, like our computers, our phones, iPads, great ways to have some instant information that we can use right away for our paintings. So I'll use this. This is a Swiss a scene in Switzerland, some background, beautiful mountains in the background, blue, cool mountains in the background, and we have some beautiful homes here in the foreground of this painting, of this picture. And we'll work right from this. And if you notice, this is a little blurry. This is a good thing to do. Sometimes it's really actually good if you can kind of blur out some of the details. If you can do it in your mind mentally to try to blur out some details so that you don't have too many details that you're looking at. So what I do sometimes is I'll take a photo, and then I will take a larger photo and then shrink it down and make it smaller, and then kind of like just crop out a small bit of picture from a larger photograph. And by doing that on my phone, it actually makes everything a lot softer looking and more abstract. So this way I'm not bogged down in too many details trying to see like how many bricks are in the chimney, or what kind of exact type of window that might be, or things like that. So if we can kind of get this a little bit more abstract as far as what we're working from, that gives us a little bit of an advantage, so we're not getting too caught up in a lot of details. So this will be a good way to do that. You can sometimes even blur your pictures out if you want to. With certain applications on our phones and things like that, you can actually make something look a little bit more hazy looking, so that you kind of soften out some of the details. But that's what we're going to do here, work from this picture on the phone, and we have that, and that's from Switzerland. So first thing I'm going to notice is we can just sort of, this paper, and this is fluid paper, fluid watercolor paper. This happens to be acid-free cold press, 140 pound, 300 GSM. Fluid is a really, really good, excellent quality paper. And I've always had the availability to have this when there's a Blick store about 5 miles from my house here in New Jersey in the United States. So I've always been able to get fluid paper because they carry it in the Blick stores, and they also have it online too as well, of course, on their website. But in any case, that is really something that I've always enjoyed, is the fluid paper. They make really good quality paper. And I'll just tape down maybe I'll tape it down over here. I might have to get some larger. This might work here. I'll just take the tape like this and tape it down like that. That'll work good. Okay, just so that this pad of paper is not sliding around and moving as we draw. So let's start out and just kind of notice the peaks of these mountains are up here, like that. Then this mountain comes across here, the top of this mountain, so you can give it a little more interesting look if you want to, like that. And then I'll go over it with a little bit of a darker pencil line. I'll use a Statler soft pencil, so this way you can see the pencil lines as I'm going here. So I'm just going to go down like this. And of course, this is an extreme beginners video, so we'll use the Prang Oval 16 set, which is a great set to start off with. So if you're just starting out in watercolor, and if you happen to be, if this is your first time here, welcome. It's great to have you. Thanks so much for coming by. And again, this is the perfect time. You're at the right place at the right time, especially if you're just starting out in watercolor, because my extreme beginners videos, like we're doing here, they're really just tailored for and geared for like beginners with watercolor. So if you're 6 months, 1 year, you're working in watercolor, perfect place to you subscribe on the right hand side below if you feel inclined to, and then you'll have these videos coming in once a week, and you'll be able to watch them. And it's just, again, we're using basic materials, basic brushes, nothing too expensive. This way you get started and you feel it out if you like it or not. And then you know, you can also, art has so many different other mediums. You know, you can do sculpture or oil painting, abstract painting. You can do ink style paintings. You can work in again, oils, acrylics. You can also there's all kinds of great things out there you can get involved with art. So maybe you'll try out watercolor for a while, maybe you'll love it and have a good time with it. And it's just always options with art. There's so many things in the art world that you can work with, and all kinds of mediums. And so now that we notice, we can really simply get these tops of these mountains in by just looking at this and saying, okay, yeah, it's a little bit down from the bottom, the top of the mountain, or from the top down a little bit, like a ½ an inch maybe. And we got the shape of that fine. This one here, we made a little more of a interesting shape, possibly like that. And then here, the tops of these trees are about not quite halfway. Maybe this one's halfway up here. So if we just take our paper and kind of section it off and say that's about halfway there, well, then we know we can start with this tree here. And then we'll just have that tree there. And then we can sort of go across, and we notice that these trees are all pretty much sort of going across the painting in a level fashion. They're not really going on a steep slope or anything like that. They're kind of going straight across the scene here like this. And then we have another tree over here and another one here. Just a basic idea of where they are. Then we can start getting in our houses here. And I'll just start with this one here. And I'll just go across and I'll look and I'll notice that's the roof is there, like so. Like this. And there's some trees in front of that house there. It's 2 stories, so that's one there and another one here. Similar to this. And then 2 window here, window here. So I'm just going to make small, very, very quick indications of windows. And then there's perhaps some glass sliding doors here on the 1st and 2nd floor. And there's some balconies and decks here too. Beautiful picturesque area. If you see a little bit of an angle that might be off, no problem. You just lift up a little bit of the pencil line with your kneaded eraser. And you just maybe straighten out a few angles if you find that they're maybe don't just look right. Usually roofs are pretty kind of easy to see the angles. Once you put on the pencil lines, then you can kind of sort of see them, the angles on the roofs, and you can adjust them from there. So if you get it started, then you're in good shape. And then we have another house over here next to this one, and it's over here. And it goes across the painting the second house here. So we have our first roof and building here, house. Next one over here, it goes across about 2/3 of the way over, 1/3, 2/3, 3/3. So that's about pretty accurate. Like that. And it's sort of behind some trees, so we're going to make some trees and things over here. Like that. And then there's another one over here with a large tree in front there. Like that, and it goes across here. And then here in the foreground we have another. So the top of this roof here in this building in the foreground, so we have this house in the foreground here. Its top of its roof here, the ridge of this roof, is the bottom of this house here, where the ground level is. So if we just go here to the ground level and come across, that gives us this rooftop here, the ridge of this rooftop. So then when we do that, we kind of find, all right, that's the top of that here. Then we say, where's this point here? Well, it's actually straight up right within that line. So it picks up that line where the where you have the corner of the house over here. So if you have the corner of the house here and you bring this line down this way, and then you come across here like so, you'll see that's about where that roof is, like that. And there's some more trees over here on the left, on the right hand side of this side over here. So that looks really good. We have the building over here, and maybe we're going to, we'll just maybe leave this one here like this. You know, we can delete some details. I'm going to delete this small little shack that's next to this house down here. I'm just going to delete that out and just leave it one level, this house here, one level. And we'll put some, maybe we'll put a door over here and a couple of windows like this. And it's just about having fun, enjoying the painting process, the drawing process, the painting process, how we're going to create this painting. We're going to do the glazing technique. That'll be fun. So we do have a little bit of pencil lines here that we could put in, so we can kind of notice that straight across here is sort of like a hill, and that hill rolls down this way. So we kind of see that there's like a plateau up here leading up to this. Maybe over here. We won't get into too much details. We're just going to leave this green grass over here. We'll make these orange and gray roofs. There's some chimneys here. We'll make some chimneys on these. Like that, and some more chimneys over here. Like so. And I think that's pretty much good. So we have a good, solid sketch here. We have our roofs. We have some pipes on our roof for the vent pipes for the roofing. And now what we're going to do is we'll take a quick break. It's always good to take a quick break once in a while, maybe 10-15 minutes. Let your concentration, your mind relax. Come back in 10-15 minutes and get started. We'll start mixing up our paints. For our colors, we're going to use a very simple color scheme here to kind of just get all the colors mixed up on our palette first, and then we'll just go in and put them right on the paper. I might soften up a few of these lines up here on the mountains because I just wanted you to see what they look like. Sometimes on camera it's a little difficult to see the pencil lines when I'm drawing, so I made those a little darker, but I think you can kind of see everything here pretty clearly on the bottom, the structures here. And then once we start painting, it just really evolves, and you'll see a lot more of the lines and things like that as we go. But I think we have everything pretty much good for our sketch. And then again, we'll get our paints mixed up next onto the palette, and then we'll get ready to start painting. Let's mix up our paints. First thing, we can use a number of brushes here. I have the Blix and the Princeton brushes. Blix has a really nice synthetic brush, the Blix Studio synthetic brushes. That's a 1/2 inch flat brush, and then we have another flat brush. That's by Princeton Art and Brush Company here. 1 inch flat brush. I'm also using a Simply Simmons number 9 round brush. We also have the stock brush that comes with the set, the Prang Oval 16 set here, the round brush, which is kind of easy to see here. We have the yellow end on the brush with the blue handle. So that's made by Prang. It's a number 6, and that comes with your set when you purchase a Prang Oval 16 set. So we have all of these brushes, but let's start out with the first one. Is let's use a 1-inch. You know, we could use something smaller, of course, but 1 inch is kind of just really good. We're going to empty out our water bucket. If you have any water in your bucket when you're starting out with this painting, you're going to want to just put fresh, clean, clear, crystal clear water into your water bucket like that so that it's nice and clear. And this way we can get some just dampness to the paper. So I'll just take my brush with the water on it and just dampen this whole paper, the whole entire sheet. I'm not flooding the paper with a ton of water, just enough to dampen the whole paper, like this, like that. So once I dampen the paper, it's going to be prepared so that when we put the watercolor onto it, the washes of water and color mixed, it'll soak into the paper really good and give us a nice soft looking classic watercolor look. So there we go. We have some good. We're using the glazing technique, of course. We're going to get this first light wash on of blue all the way across the whole painting and let that dry 100%. So pretty much now, you know, once you have your crystal clear water on your paper like this, right over the top of your pencil sketch, your pencil drawing, then you know your next step is going to be to mix up some blue. We're going to use our, I would consider this like a French ultramarine blue or a cobalt blue, like a nice right in the middle between warm and cool blue. So sometimes you'll notice there's cooler blues that are like this. They have more green in them. So this is more like a cobalt blue or French ultramarine blue that we would use in maybe any kind of other acrylics or oil painting or more advanced artists. More advanced artists will use tube paints where they squeeze out the colors onto their palettes, and you can use that too if you're a beginner. It's up to you. This seems to be a real easy way, though, to paint when you're first starting. All you have to do, really, with this Prang Oval 16 set is take a spritzer bottle, one of these water spritzer bottles here. I have all my art supplies are below in the description box below. So if you do want to research any of my products that I use, all my art supplies for watercolor, beginner's watercolor as well, it's all in the description box below. You just have to click sometimes on the word more. And if you click on the word more, you'll see all the links, and you just click on any one of them. And then you can see, you know, go one by one looking through them, and that brings you over to the Amazon.com site, which Amazon is the great, you know, store. It has all art supplies on Amazon, so I get all my art supplies on Amazon pretty much. Sometimes I'll go to other sites to get things, but for the most part, I can get all of my art supplies right on Amazon. Makes it convenient for me. So let's start out here and just get some really nice blue on the top of this and some purple. Let's do a little purple too. Let's get some purple in here. And what I do is maybe this mountain here in the back, I'll have a little more purple in it, like that. And then maybe we can lighten up the top with a tissue. We can take the sky. See how the sky's kind of light? No problem. If you want to lighten up your sky, just go right along the top with a tissue and blot up some of that paint. So this way you have the paint on there coloring your paper, and then you just lighten up your sky. And it doesn't have to be perfect. You can have a little bit of the top of the mountain blotted up with a little bit of paint. Kind of gives that mountain, the top of that mountain, a little bit of a glow to it, like there's some light on the top of the mountain. And then as you go down here in this section of this part of the mountain, maybe we go a little darker. So we add more blue, less water, a little more paint. And then maybe we just add a touch of burnt umber, like that. More blue. Just, again, that touch of burnt umber will just kind of warm this up a little bit, this blue here. So this will be our next blue that we do for the next mountain closest to us. It's a little bit more darker, like that. And then once you get that done, there are a lot of trees over here now that we're seeing, and of course all of the houses. So what we'll do is, instead of struggling and trying to paint around the houses and so forth and the roofs and everything, we just take this darker blue now and just clean off our brush, dry off our brush on a little bit of paper towel or tissue, and then just gently, with a damp brush, just make it a light wash over everything here on the bottom. But we don't want to go too much paint. We don't want to make it dark, because you can see we have a lot of trees along here. The tops of the trees all back here, so that's going to be right in this darker blue area. So if we just kind of fade that blue, that darker blue of this mountain here, mountain range here, if we just kind of fade that one in nice like that, you kind of see it's a little darker. Maybe you can add a little bit of a little more blue. And the only thing is, you only have a few seconds to do this now, to add this little bit of a darker wash like this. Other than that, you'll have to wait till it dries, and then you can go over with another if you feel you need to make this a little darker. Once we're done, you'll kind of notice that later if you'll need to make something a little darker. But I think that's fine. Once you have that, you're all set. You have this darker area here matching this darker area of this mountain range, and then you have this lighter purplish, lighter mountain range up here, because that's way further in the distance. That's miles away from this mountain range. So you got this mountain range. This next mountain range over here might be about 10 miles away from this one, so it gets a lot lighter, mistier. The dampness in the atmosphere, the water in the atmosphere, makes things look much more misty and diffused and kind of more lighter in tonal value. So you're just going to accept that as when things get further in the distance in your landscapes or city scenes, cityscapes, and street scene paintings, if you're seeing things in the distance, they're going to be lighter and cooler. So we're just going to have this lighter purplish blue mountain range in the back there, miles away from this mountain range here. And that's all we know. And then the sky is obviously quite a bit lighter. So we're just matching our photograph in this on our electronic device here to our painting for the most part. You get it as close as you can get it, and then you don't fight with it or try to start like adding a lot more paint or use, once you get these first washes on, let them dry 100%. So now that's why I say let's take a break, let this dry. Now you have these first bit of washes on your paper. We have to let it dry. That's part of the glazing technique. If you want to really kind of gain control of the glazing technique, one of the parts of it is really having that discipline of just saying, okay, that first light wash goes over the whole painting, and then we have to let it dry. And you can use a blow dryer and get this dry in about 5 minutes with a blow dryer, or you can let it dry, for a couple hours or an hour, or even overnight or a week from now. So it doesn't matter, but it just has to be at least an hour if you're not going to use a blow dryer. But if you have a blow dryer and you use that, you can maybe dry this up in 5 minutes, if that, even less than that. A couple minutes might be able to dry off the paper enough that you can start working again. So let's do that. I'm going to use the blow dryer again, and then this way we can start in about 2 or 3 minutes from now. But I will take a quick break, and then we'll come right back. All right, so we're going to continue on here. The paper is now dry. So we have that first glazing, that first wash over the entire paper. And we left this area a little more light. We didn't put as much blue wash, the darker blue wash here. We didn't bring that down into these buildings as much. We did a little bit of damp brush. So we just took a little bit of this brush here. We rinsed it off and just left a damp brush with no paint really. And then just slowly faded this down in here. So there is some blue wash down here, cool wash. That's really good. I think we have the glazing technique is getting that first wash over the whole paper, letting it dry, and now we can go in with our other washes over the top, and we should have really good success doing this. So the next thing I'll probably do is work with my I'll use this brush next, I think, the Simply Simmons, and I'll start to mix up some colors for the trees. And I'll use some of that lemon yellow, and then like that lighter green here. So we have some of that lemon yellow and lighter green, darker green up here, maybe some burnt umber. Make an olive green. If you can make a nice olive green with burnt umber and this darker green here, that's good. I think we should probably make a green down here that's more cooler with some blue. So we'll take some of that medium blue and we'll make a cooler green like that. Maybe even a little bit of purple in there. And then we'll start to get some of the cooler. So I'm just going to start going in and just like in a circular fashion here, painting the cooler greens here. I'll paint around the rooftops. Then as we move into some of the other, I'm just doing the circular motions here, like this. You could even take a little bit of that, see if you can get a few splashes in there, just to give it some textural kind of feel. And then we can even work into some of these darker greens here, the olive kind of greens, and we start to work those on the closer to the foreground here. And then we can start putting in that little bit of a darker, warmer green here. That's the cooler greens back there. And then you can even go with some more burnt umber and blue. And we can make some darker bluish greens down here. Maybe warmer though with the burnt umber. And then some green. We'll keep it predominantly green. But these are kind of the good bits of washes you'll make for your tree shapes as you go. Darker in front, obviously. You can do a couple. You can do a little finger painting. Like that. And then we start to paint the lighter greens and yellows here. Maybe there's some, the tops of the trees have some of that lemony yellow kind of feel to it. So you can put some of that in to sort of give the trees and the foliage like some dynamics to it, so that it's not just looking all like one wash. That's the kind of thing with when you're first starting out in watercolor. A good thing that you keep in mind is to try to get a lot of variation in colors and in lights and darks too, but definitely colors. Like we want to avoid like just taking one color, like just saying, like just taking this one green and saying, I'm going to come over here. I'm off camera there. I apologize. Like just taking one green like this and saying, okay, I'm going to make all the trees this one green here that I'm using, and paint all the trees with that one green. It would look very, very non-exciting and pleasant looking. It would just look like there wasn't any thought into like the painting as far as having dynamics to the painting. And so that's why I'm going with, you know, all the different washes you see here. And we'll get a finer brush too to get some more finer bits of detail as we go. And you can put some of that yellow into the roofs. You could take a tiny bit of yellow, since this is sort of dry now up here. That's what I'm saying about mixing some different washes. This would be just a little bit of lemon yellow in the top portion of this painting, very quickly, very lightly, just a few brush strokes of that yellow, and even up here, that yellowish green, just to put a very slight, barely noticeable amount of that yellow. But what that does is it kind of harmonizes all the colors together in the whole painting. So, and you can even do some splashing here closer in the foreground. I wouldn't do any splashing up here in the mountains in the distance there. But this is Then we can start, we're going to have a little bit of orange. Same thing with the orange and red, or let's go with the orange and the darker orange. And that's what we're going to do here. We're just going to get our orange, light orange, and more like orange and red orange. We'll put that first one there. Then maybe here we'll do brown and orange. Make this one a little bit like so, so it's not as bright. So we'll keep that bright orange right here in the center of the painting. And this we can kind of blend out into the trees. So the sides of the painting aren't as important. It's more the focal point maybe here. That's really over here. We can just leave that like so. And then I think we can make some changes. Maybe we're not going to make this house dark like this. See how there's all these really, really dark darks there? Maybe we'll just make the windows dark darks, and we'll leave this facade of this house more like light brown, or even picking up some of the colors of just a light wash there like that. And then down here, probably the same thing. Maybe we'll go with a more vibrant orange here. Yellow, orange, red, orange. Like this. Maybe a little touch of brown in there to tone it down a little bit. And we'll do that. We'll make this more brighter and high intensity since it's closer to us. Like that. And I think we really are, we have actually we've got a lot of detail here and a lot of good color. And I think that's going to look fine. A little bit of purple. Where's the light coming from? We'll leave this, I think, light white paper maybe. Maybe just a little bit of wash on there. Like that. And as you can see, this is a good time, a good point to just let this dry now. We've got all that second glazing on the painting, that second wash, which are your medium and darker tonal values. But we do have some more darker darks. So I would say this is mostly medium tonal values right now here. These are the lights up here in the mountains. Just like here, these are the lights of the painting. Then you're into the middle tonal values in here. And in the grass here, lots of middle tonal values there. And then as we finish up the painting, we'll get some of the darker darks in, and maybe some more of the finer details. And we're gonna use this is a really great brush, a Princeton Aqua Elite brush. So you can see that very, very fine point there. Number 3 round brush. And then of course I did most of the painting with this number 9, Simply Simmons. And of course we started out with the 1-inch. Wash brush, Princeton Art and Brush Company, easy to find. I have all the links to all my materials, art supplies down below. Some of the brushes, maybe some things may not be down below in the comments section. If you click the word more, you'll find all the art supplies that I do use on an ongoing basis. But even some of these I just haven't maybe had the time to put the links in below, but you'll see most of them are there. And you can just go and find these too. As I mentioned, these brushes are really great for beginning watercolors. They're synthetic brushes. Synthetic brushes hold less water, which means you'll have less water flooding onto your paper when you're painting. So that's why I use synthetic brushes when we're doing beginner's style, or if you're just newer in watercolor, maybe the first year or two. If you're using synthetic brushes, you're going to have better luck because you won't have as much problem with natural hair brushes. Natural hair brushes are more absorbent of water. So when you use natural hair brushes, and maybe you have them, maybe you've tried them, you'll notice they do hold a lot more water, so that when you do put some brush strokes onto your painting, a lot of times it'll really push a lot of water out onto your paper. And sometimes that can cause problems with unpleasant looking blotches and splotches of paint and marks on your paper. So I try to be more encouraging to use synthetic brushes when you're first starting out. I think it's the better way to go. And maybe you have a couple natural hair brushes too that you use, and you try them out as you're painting, and you kind of get the feel for both of the brush, styles. Okay, well, in any case, we're having a great time here. And again, I'm hoping you'll consider subscribing on the right-hand side below if you like this channel, because we're going to have much more videos just like this coming down the pike. And I think this is a fun way to learn watercolors, especially too, working in a small format like this really helps because all your concentration is focused in on this one area of your painting versus starting with larger sheets of paper. So if you can kind of start out watercolors with maybe this size or twice the size of this paper. This is like a 4x6 or 4x5, I think, size paper. I think we have it right here underneath. This is 4x6 inches paper. It's made by Fluid. Excellent paper. And let's come back in just a minute to do our final details, and we'll just use our number 3 round brush here to get the chimneys on there, maybe a couple pine trees, windows, and we're all set. All right, so we're finishing up our painting here. I think what I'll do is I usually have a tissue with me on hand at all times, blotting up some paint here and there if you need to. Also, I like to dry my brush. So if I have my brush, I rinse it off, and then I take a little bit of the water and just touch the tissue or the napkin or the paper towel, take off a little bit of the water, and this way we can really have great straight paint and no water, really too much water. And maybe I'll go with a little more reddish orange here. We'll see if we can make something a little more interesting. Let's see, a little more red there, like that for our chimney. So it stands out, it looks a little different than the color of the roof. And now that we have that, I think that's looking good. Nice brick chimney there. And then maybe we do the same thing, except this one in the distance here is going to be a little bit lighter. We'll add a little green to that maybe, just to dull down this orange or this red. Let's take a red here and then add a little green to it. See if we can tone down that red a little bit with some green. That's the opposite color on the color wheel, red and green. Complements colors. And we have that. Maybe we'll take some black up here. I always put the black up on the top of the palette up here. I don't want to mix it with other colors because it's such a strong, this black is very, very strong color. So I take that, check a little bit of that off there, and maybe I'll put a chimney here. This might be a metal one, a metal chimney there, like that. Now next, I would like to make some shadows on those chimneys. So that would be purple. Maybe a little bit of brown to tone down that purple just a touch. So we have some purple with a little bit of brown in it. And we'll make the chimney shadows like this. Hopefully our shadows work out. So I would say the light's coming from this direction. If the shadows are here on the left side of the chimneys, on this side of the chimneys, that would mean the light's coming from this kind of direction. So this might be in light, this might be in shadow. So we'll take this and put this in shadow, this side of the house, like that. That might be in light over there. This is in shadow too. Put that purple on there just a little bit. Then we can take some of that brown and purple again, and we're just going to have a little bit of shadowing there at the bottom of the house. Like that, and over here too. And then I think we can take some green, brown to make it a olivey green, tone down the green, and then maybe even a little bit of purple. Brown, purple, a little bit of red even. Or, yeah, red would be fine. Blue, pine trees, a little bit cooler. Then I would dry off a little bit of the paint on my brush, just a little bit on there, and then you can actually just make a couple pine trees here. Just indications of them, and then as usually the pine trees, the branches they go out level from so they go out perpendicular to the trunk of the tree, and then toward the top they they point upwards, the branches. So if we can capture those few details like that, couple dots of paint, indications of, we could even go up a little higher, a couple more things like that. I think that looks good. You can blot up a little bit if you want, blend them in a little bit. I think that looks fine. A little bit of a darker shadow there, closer to the house. We can actually blend that one out a little bit. Okay, so I'm just working my last bit of details. And maybe some windows. Maybe there's a door here. And I won't go with too much detail. I won't try to keep working at it, and best thing to do is just try to get them in quickly. That's usually the best way to go. Just get them in somewhat close. A little more purple. Maybe just a little bit of shadowing underneath the roofs here. So underneath the eaves of the roof, it might be just a little bit of shadow there. Maybe it's a little bit darker blue, blue and red with the purple and brown. Red, brown, purple, blue. A little bit darker, blue, more blue. And then we just put a little darker bits of shadow under the windows up there like that. Little mysterious kind of shadows and things. You could put a little bit of a dark wash there and then just blend it and make it lighter. And you can lift up and blot up a little bit if you want. If you think you've gone with too much detail and you just want to go in quickly. But I think that looks fine. I think only one more thing we can do. We can take a little bit of white, titanium white in a tube. So I always have a titanium white in a tube right next to me at my art table. For highlights, I take the titanium white, open up the cap, take just a touch of orange, or maybe some orange and yellow, even a little bit of red, but usually orange will be fine, or yellow. And you put that into the top of the tube and mix it around a little bit, and you have a little bit of a highlight color here now, which is kind of a warm white. So it's a warm white highlight color versus just the stark white titanium. And then you could take your tissue, paper towel, something to dry off your brush a little. You don't want too much white paint flooding out onto your paper. So you dry off a little bit on the paper towel, and you have some of that white on top of here, and then you just do a very, very few little highlights there, just like that. Not many, just a little tiniest bit of white paint goes a long way. If it's too much, you just lift it up like that, and then go back in and do it one more time like that. Maybe a little more white on the rooftops here. Maybe over here there's a bit of white highlight there. If it doesn't look good, blot it up. No problem. A little bit of green there. Maybe this is the light side over here. So maybe we see a bit of light there like that. A little more white. Again, if it's too much, don't worry about it. Blot it up quick like that. And maybe it's just that one little bit of light that's there, and maybe one more over here. And maybe there's just a little bit of lighter. Maybe this is some lighter bit of sand over here to make a little bit of a change from here to here. And I'll just fade that shadow out like that. And I think that's it. Sparingly with our details like that, with the white, sparingly, just a little tiny bit of white for the tops of the chimneys, a little bit on the trim of the roofs. And I think that's fine. We could take a little more white. Here. Make it a little with a purple, a little bit of purple in the white. And maybe and then we can dry off the brush just a little bit, and then maybe we could just add a couple of details to these windows here. Like this, because we have details on these windows here a little bit. And if this is closer, to us here, we'd want to have a little more detail then. If we're going to have details over here, absolutely this is closer to us, so we'd want to see more details on this section right here of this building. So I put a couple of details on the door, maybe a couple windows in the door, on the window, maybe a couple panes of the glass. Trying to think if there's anything else we can maybe do. I think that is good. Just gives us a little bit more detail on this area so that it kind of makes sense that here's a fair amount of details, a little less details here, and then over here this is already fading into the background and into the trees and the bushes and all that, and then it goes back into the forest areas and then up into the mountains. So it's kind of a good overall glazing technique covered here, and something that's really fun. The Switzerland, beautiful mountains, can't go wrong. Hope you'll come back again and paint with us. And until then, we'll see you. So you have a great evening, a great morning, and a great afternoon. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.